Hey guys, it is April from Getting Homegoing with It. Today I wanted to share with you 9 books that have made me cry. Now I've categorized these into like 1 box of Kleenex, 2 boxes of Kleenex, and 3 boxes of Kleenex because they've all made me cry to different degrees. There have been times when I've just been bawling my eyes out, and if anyone's walked into the room while I've been reading crying, they're like, "Are you okay? Did somebody die?" But no, it's just the book that I'm reading. So I love all of these books and I'm excited to share them with you. So let's get into it. So first let's start with the 1 box Kleenex category. These are books that made me cry, brought tears to my eyes, but I also was able to like kind of hold it together just a little bit. If someone like rang the doorbell, I could go and answer the door without looking like a hot mess. The first book I want to talk to you about is Homegoing. I loved Homegoing. I have talked about this book before. This is a story about 2 sisters who live in Africa. One of them marries a slave trader, and another is sold into slavery and is sent to America. Now, these sisters don't know about each other, and we follow their stories and the consequential lives and the stories of their offspring, essentially. So it goes all the way back to the stories of these sisters to the present day. And there were a lot of heart-wrenching stories in here. You are going to fall in love with some characters, and it's a really amazing thing that this author can pull you so close to characters that you know you're going to leave in the next chapter to move on to another character. And of course everything, kind of comes together. At the end, I could not help but just burst into tears. This is a beautifully written book. Honestly, you could cry just because the writing is that good. The next book I definitely cried for was Never Let Me Go. I did not expect to cry. When I first picked up this book, I was like, oh, this is kind of dystopian, a little bit sci-fi. This follows a group of kids who all live together at this school. I don't want to give too much away, but there is something amiss. These kids don't have parents. They don't study at a regular school. There is something amiss in this scenario. The bond between these friends and the situation that they're in and how their stories develop as they continue through school, after they've left school, it is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. And really disturbing. Like, I could understand reading this and not crying because you're so disturbed. It's one of those things, if you like sci-fi with a lot of emotions to it, read this book. It is beautiful. I have since picked up so many other books by Kazuo Ishiguro. I'm saying his name wrong. But I've picked up a bunch of other books from him because he is such a brilliant writer. It's so emotive. You can't really help but cry. The next book that I definitely cried with was Mr. Pip. This follows an island where there is civil war going on, and all the white people leave because they're rich and they can. So all the white people leave except one man. He decides to stay in order to teach these kids because when civil war breaks out, everything is in shambles, including schools. The school has stopped, and he just doesn't think that's right. So, he's just an average Joe. He's not an actual teacher. So he decides to pick up Charles Dickens' Great Expectations. And it is the bond between this teacher and this man and these little kids. I don't think you can read this book and not cry. It's definitely one of my favorite books of all time as well, so go and read it. Okay, so let's get to like level 2. You're gonna need 2 boxes of Kleenex to get through these books. The first book that I definitely needed 2 boxes of Kleenex for was A Monster Calls. Oh my god. This is short. You could truly read this in one sitting, and I kind of recommend that you do so that you can stay with the story and get out all of your emotions and not have to have like 2 crying sessions. This follows a little boy whose mother is ill, and it's about his struggle with it. That's all I'm going to say. It's beautiful. The next book that I personally cried a lot for was Eat, Pray, Love. Now, I think a lot of people would be like, but that's Elizabeth Gilbert, and that's not incredibly sad. It's the story of her like traveling around and like being a rich white lady who can even do that. And yes, it is. However, she is very raw and honest in this book, and it's about her heartbreak. She has decided to leave her husband, and she goes on this trip to move on, essentially. So she goes to Italy to eat, India to pray, and was it Indonesia to fall in love again? And I personally read this right after a breakup, and I needed this book. I was heartbroken, and I needed to get over it. I needed to work through some stuff myself, so this was definitely a 2 box of Kleenex kind of book for me, but it might just be one for you. Oh my gosh, the next book, When Breath Becomes Air. It is written from a man who was a doctor and also had cancer and passed away from cancer. So he writes the book kind of in 2. The first part, you're following his experience becoming a doctor, and then in the second part, you are following him being diagnosed with cancer and passing away from cancer. I was so proud of this man for writing his story when a lot of people would have been really struggling, and rightfully so. But he struggles and writes it on paper. I think it's a real legacy for his family to have, to cling on to know what his thoughts about life were, and oh, I just cried a lot. Okay, so the last 3 are books that I personally needed 3 boxes of Kleenex to get through because they gutted me. The first one is Lily and the Octopus. Oh my God. If you have ever had a dog or loved a dog, you gotta read this book. It is about a man named Ted who has a little dachshund named Lily. One day he is looking at little sweet Lily and he sees this formation on her head, and it looks like it's an octopus. But it's not an octopus, it's cancer. But throughout the whole book, he refers to this cancer as the octopus. And so he's fighting the octopus the whole way through, trying to save Lily because he loves her and he wants her to be okay. And, you know, as much as this is a very sad book, it's also really light. It embodies the joys of having a dog, and it embodies the sadness of caring for an ill pet that, you know, they don't know what's going on and they're just trying to be their happy-go-lucky selves. And my gosh, Ted will break your little heart. If you have a heart, Ted's gonna break it in the best of ways. It's one of my favorite books that I've read this year, so go out and read that one. The next book that I definitely needed 3 boxes of Kleenex for was The Light Between Oceans. This tells the story of Tom and Isabel. He is a lightkeeper on Janus Rock, and she is a lightkeeper's wife, and they are the only people who live on Janus Rock. And they've been really struggling to conceive for a long time. They have multiple miscarriages, and one day a boat washes ashore, and in this boat is a dead man and a living and breathing baby. And so they keep the baby, and there are a lot of ramifications for that choice. For me, this made me just bawl because it was the first time that I was witnessing someone else's rawness when it comes to infertility. My husband and I have been trying to conceive for 2 years now. We're in the process of going to a fertility clinic, so like there's still some hope here for us, but it's been a very rough journey. And I have a lot of friends, luckily, who have gone through infertility issues, and I've been able to talk to them, and that's been amazingly beneficial. But I haven't been raw with them, and they haven't been raw with me. Like, I have sat in our hopefully future nursery and been trying to do yoga, and just I've fallen apart on the yoga mat. That level of despair is totally shown in The Light Between Oceans from Isabel. I really needed to feel like I was not alone in the level of despair that I was going through. So I had all the boxes of tissue with this one for sure. Another book that you're going to want 3 boxes of Kleenex for is The Book Thief. This is a World War II novel about a little girl named Liesel who lives in wartime Germany. And she is just trying to survive, have a normal childhood, but of course that isn't possible when you live in Germany during World War II. So she kind of tries to save the day by stealing books, and books kind of give her life again. They also give other people around her life again. And it is her story. A lot of this book is incredibly heartfelt and heartwarming. She's taken in by a couple, and her papa is the most wonderful man. And so there's a lot of heartwarming stories in here, and there's a lot of despair because she lives in Germany in this time. I was just the biggest mess at the end of this book. It was amazing. If you need a good cry, because sometimes we all do, I hope that some of these books will fit the bill for you. I hope that you guys are well, and I will see you next time. Bye!